What's going on, everybody? This is NYG Jeffy T3285, and I'm here for my official New York Giants draft review. I hope everybody enjoyed the NFL draft this past year. A lot of intrigue, one of the most important NFL drafts coming for the New York Giants in many, many years. We were going into this draft this year with many, many holes on this roster that we were trying to fill, including right tackle, defensive line, cornerback, safety, interior offensive line, wide receiver, tight end, pretty much linebacker. There was a lot of holes on this team that we needed to fill. And after coming out of this draft and ended up having 11 picks, the New York Giants, I believe, filled as many holes as they could in this draft that they just had yesterday. Now, the biggest needs for this team coming into this draft were obviously coming in the trenches when it came to the offensive line and the defensive line. And the New York Giants ended up getting two of the best prospects in this NFL draft, two guys that were actually at one point rated number one in this draft at one point in this entire process. And that was selecting Kayvon Thibodeaux out of Oregon, the defensive end, and Evan Neal, the offensive lineman, out of Alabama. Kayvon Thibodeaux is a guy that's going to come in, immediately going to be a player that's going to be commanding the double teams, good speed rusher off the edge. He's going to he has to try to add another move or two to his repertoire, but this is going to be a guy that's going to go out there and he's going to command the attention of the offense immediately. And Evan Neal is the type of player on the offensive line that you could just put in there at right tackle, and he's going to be a road grader, a mauler, a guy that you know is going to be able to protect your quarterback on the other side, especially when you have an Andrew Thomas on the left side. And also the Giants ended up adding a couple more guys on the offensive line during this draft, both out of North Carolina, two offensive guards. Michael McKeithen in the 5th round, and Josh Owuzu out of North Carolina as well. Two guards, both of them projected to be probably developmental players, but both of them have very, very good upside, and both of them are former second-team All-ACC players. And I think with the right time, especially when you have guys like John Feliciano, Mark Lewinsky, and Max Garcia, a few veterans here, you can allow Owuzu and McKeithen to develop on that offensive line for this year. Maybe get some shots as rotational guys, but mainly just develop this year and have a shot at winning a starting job in 2023. Maybe a guy like Owuzu has a chance to possibly win a starting job if he has a really good camp this year. But there you go. 3 important offensive line additions that this team needed to make, and they added two young potential starting guards, as well as the best offensive tackle in this draft. And they got themselves a big-time pass rusher out the edge to help out with that defense. The New York Giants also need to add some cornerback help, and they were able to do that by getting Cordero Flott out of LSU, who at one point, with the issues going on with Derek Stingley, he was rated the number 1 cornerback at one point with his coverage skills. He's a little bit lean right now, probably needs to put on a little bit of weight, projected to be a slot cornerback, but this guy has some very good, solid coverage skills. So this is a very good addition to that secondary, and he doesn't even have to go in there and play right away. He can be a guy that you can try to put in the rotation, maybe put him some nickel and dime packages, and allow him to develop a little bit before you throw him back out there. The Giants also need some help at the linebacker position, and luckily they were able to do that too in the later rounds with two guys that each play different types of roles in this defense, and that's Micah McFadden, and that's also Darion Beavers. Darion Beavers has been a prospect that I've been really intrigued with, a former potential guy who was in the Dick Butkus running for Dick Butkus player in college football for one of the best linebackers in the sport, and you were able to pick him up in the 6th round. And this guy is very solid playing against the run. He could even display some pass rush skills if you decide to send him off from the middle of the field. And McFadden is a guy that can be able to display some coverage skills, can be a nice guy you could slot right next to Blake Martinez, could even be Blake Martinez's potential replacement going out there. And this guy I think is going to be fitting into Wink Martindale's defense like a T. And then you were able to select a guy like Dane Belton out of Iowa, who is very solid interchangeable safety that you could put in there. He can play the box, he can play coverage, he can be able to tag team with Xavier McKinney at safety position, as well as Julian Love. You have a lot of versatility with this guy. He's a hard hitter in the open field. You can send him off on the edge on blitzes. You can do a lot with this kid. So this is a guy that the Giants definitely need to bring in here, and you got some very, very solid value for this kid in the 4th round. And then in terms of the tight end position, the New York Giants were able to get arguably maybe the best all-around tight end in this draft in Daniel Bellinger out of San Diego State. This kid is probably the best blocking tight end in this draft. Might not be the best receiving tight end in this draft, but this kid has a lot of abilities. Very quick, ran a 4.6 in the combine, and he can also be that safety valve over the middle, which Daniel Jones could use. So I'm very happy about that. This is a very complete tight end, something we have not had since the days of Kevin Boss back in 2007 to 2010. So that was a much-needed addition. It gives Daniel Jones a security blanket, and he's actually been comparable to a guy in Dawson Knox, who, ironically, they would know all about, because this kid is exactly what Brian Daboll had in Buffalo when he had Dawson Knox. So that's a very solid addition. You had a very good addition in DJ Davidson, who could be your potential future nose tackle in this defense. You can maybe use him as a developmental / rotational guy his first year while you have Justin Ellis in here. But he has some size. He can be able to rush the passer. He can plug up the middle. So that was a very solid addition in the 5th round. You have just a lot of guys in this draft, minus the first 2. And how can I forget about Wandale Robinson, the wide receiver out of Kentucky, who is a perfect fit for this offensive system. He can play all over the field. He can be splitting the outside. You can put him in the slot. You can have him run jet sweeps. You can have him run the ball. You can use him in a gadget type role. This guy, he could return punts and kicks. This kid is going to be the ultimate weapon in this new Kafka Daboll system, and he exactly fits this system to a T. So I'm very pleased with the guys that we have gotten in this draft. Now, I think most of these guys are going to end up either being rotational guys, special teams players. They could even be inactive a good amount this season. But I think these moves, besides the first 3 picks, I think a lot of these moves are geared towards the future. And these are guys that might not play a lot in their first year, but these are guys that they're expecting to be contributors with a lot of upside in their 2nd, maybe even 3rd years of their career. So this is more geared to the future. And you got yourself 2 stud cornerstone players in the beginning of the draft with Kayvon Thibodeau and Evan Neal. And even a Wandale Robinson, who I think is going to be playing a bigger role in this offense than many figured. The Giants also added some pretty intriguing undrafted free agents as well. They added Yusef Corker, safety out of Kentucky. He could be a guy that could maybe make this roster. You also added Jashawn Corbin, the running back out of Florida State. This kid knows how to run up in north and south, something that we don't have in the running back position. So don't be surprised if this kid actually comes in and maybe wins the job and gets one of those backup running back roles as our north and south runner. Austin Allen, big size tight end, great blocking guy out of Nebraska. He could maybe end up being a tight end 3 for this team if he makes the roster. You have Chris Hinton, defensive lineman out of Michigan. This is a kid that's got some decent skills, can plug up the middle, could be a good solid depth player on the team. I mean, you got a lot of guys. You got Darren Evans, another cornerback out of LSU. He could end up possibly making the back end of this roster. Obviously, familiarity with Cordero Flott as well, since the both of them played together in LSU. So this is going to be a kid that's going to compete, possibly win the back end of the roster. Also, Josh Rivas. This kid is another offensive line prospect that they got. Could develop into a guy that maybe we can throw in there as a depth player. So, I mean, the Giants got themselves a lot of guys with upside. Might not play right away, but these are guys that are geared towards the future. Once some of these veterans on 1-year deals run out, and you can replace some of these veterans with a lot of young kids coming in. So I have to say, I'm very pleased with what the New York Giants have done so far in this draft. They've done a great job, a lot of upside, 2 absolute studs in the 1st round that are going to be cornerstone players for this team. And I think things are really starting to look up and be optimistic for this franchise and that dark cloud that has been hovering over this New York Giants football team for the past 10 years might start to finally be moving away. Now, the expectation for the team, I'm not expecting a whole, I'm not expecting them to go 13-4, 14-3, go to a Super Bowl or anything. It might even be a stretch for them to make the playoffs. But the one thing that we are expecting as Giants fans is progression, a foundation, an identity being built, building blocks on this team. We are expecting just progress going into next season, and that's what I believe, and that's what most of the Giants fans out there believe. We are finally going into the right direction as a franchise, as an organization, and we finally have the correct regime running things and running the show to bring us back to the prominence that we once had. So I have to say I'm very pleased with this draft. I would give it probably a B+ to an A-. Reason why I haven't gone a solid A is because a lot of these prospects, they still haven't gotten on the field yet. There are a lot of high upside guys. Probably a lot of them might not even play, might even just be special teams guys if maybe they crack the rotation at some point. And some snaps on the defensive and offensive side of the ball. But I think a lot of them are going to be rotational guys. But either way, a lot of upside we have here on this team. So that's just my quick review of the New York Football Giants as their 2022 NFL Draft comes to an end, and some solid undrafted free agents have been picked up. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Let's go Football Giants. Take it easy. Enjoy your Sunday, everybody. And remember, Big Blue is coming back, and we're coming back with a vengeance.